You're listening to the Walt Weekly Podcast with our host, Walter Latham, and our co-host, Michelle Sweeney McCombs. Voices in society impacting the culture.
Hello, and thanks for joining the Walt Weekly Podcast. So on today's show, we're going to hear from the horse's mouth. What is it like to pursue a career in corporate America? I've been working in corporate America for about more than 25 years. I started as a teenager, actually, and worked in the mailroom and moved up to department head, VP, director level. I also hold a BS, MBA, and I have attained the credential of project management professional, which gives me a license to run projects, and it's recognized globally. And I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I do want to just set the tone. And my expertise is money movement, and some people call it funds transfer, money transfer, compliance, which includes AML and OFAC, foreign exchange, and investment banking. So that's where my expertise is. Now then, I have called on you, by the way, that there were not many available people when I tried to put this group together. All right. So I wanted to hear it. I've been out of corporate America for 5 years. So I wanted to make a determination. I want our audience to try to, our listeners, to just get a feel of what it's like to work in corporate America. Okay. That's why I called y'all guys in. But it was hard finding the people. I tell you, it was. I was surprised how hard it was at a certain level because I was looking for a BP and up. Okay, so with
Well,
that
we have
said,
one.
Okay, yeah, there you go. That was hard to find. We had to look close in, to find.
At home.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and I want to have them introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about themselves, and then we can go on with the questions. All right, we have Kina. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? And it could be in the same vein.
Hello, I have about 20 years experience in the project management, program management, and portfolio management function, primarily operating in the more so delivering innovative technology and business transformational initiatives in the fintech space. I've delved into a couple of other industries such as consumer goods as well as architectural engineering design. However, I've always found myself returning back to the fintech space.
Okay. Robel, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Well, thanks for having me. I have spent the last 20 years in the payments processing and merchant services world. That's really been spread out mostly in the operations side of the business, and that covers a lot of the typical service side of most companies. So customer service, tech support. I've also been responsible for underwriting and credit, as well as risk management, compliance, regulatory, and some technology services responsibilities as well. I spent a couple of years during that 20-year time span also working on the finance side of the business as well. So I've been fortunate to be able to stay, in about 4 or 5 companies, all in the payment space during that time frame. About 2 years ago, I branched out and started my own consulting business, and that's what I'm doing now, and that's what Shifted is.
Awesome.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And Lyle, let's hear from you.
Right now, I am currently a VP at a Wall Street clearing firm. I have roughly 38 years of experience on Wall Street. I joined right after high school as a messenger. I've worked my way into operations, detailing, starting P&S, purchase and sales, onto settlements, FX, done some foreign exchange things. I've done buy-in business, and some options, and also what we call fail control, as well as stock record functions. Currently, I oversee 3 of those departments: the buy-in area, the settlements area, the fail control area. I oversee those now currently. And that's about it.
Well, that's a lot.
That's
Go through 3 departments.
yeah.
Three departments. Yeah, that's a lot there.
It's a lot of hats.
Yeah, it's a lot of hats. Okay, you got 3 offices. I'll tell you that. But anyway,
Awesome.
okay, let's go to the next question here. Okay, compared to your competitors in the workplace, were you treated fairly and being considered for management positions?
Hi. What I found in my career is that I've been considered that asset to my manager, where I want to say that I've been held back because they found that it was more of an advantage to them to hold me in the current position as the individual that they could kind of go to for anything. And they knew that I would deliver. So when it was an opportunity for me to advance, they did not want to release me. However, I did find that other positions that I wanted to advance to that I was clearly qualified for, there were other races that were very easily transitioned into those roles where I felt that I don't know if it was a matter of my manager just wanting to hold me back or not necessarily being given the opportunity to advance. So I can't really put my foot on it. But there are times that I did feel like it was a little race related, but I don't have enough background to be able to explicitly state so.
Okay, now before I move on to the next person, I just want to just elaborate a little bit on what you just said. You know, throughout your career, is there anything that you could, any promotion that you could, that you were denied or didn't get, that you could attribute it to not just being the halo, you have that halo effect in that position, meaning you were damn good at what you did, and they didn't want to move you for fear they couldn't get anybody better. But it was just it was just black and white. This other person got
Yeah,
it.
not directly for myself.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. And Robel, I'm going to direct that question to you. And
I think. I'm sorry. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Compared to your competitors in the workplace, people that you work with, close with, same level of experience, that you were overlooked or not promoted because you were, and you felt that you were being treated unfairly because of your race.
Yeah, unfortunately, each company each company I've been at, I mean, you get a sense of that, and I think obviously the more junior you are, the more of a challenge that was, and the more that you could see it, and that was very evident for me at the beginning of my career that there were multiple occasions where I was just kind of baffled that despite all the work and despite all the success and positive things that were being done within my group or by myself, even at that individual level, it was always one of those things that unfortunately you just kind of said to yourself, you got to work twice as hard and keep moving. Once I started getting a little bit higher in different companies, it was moving in a different direction. It was one of those situations now that I didn't see that because the value in what I was able to bring and my responsibilities was just a situation where I would see that there weren't really any other opportunities above me, besides being on the executive team or being a chief at the C level. And
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's story is going to be different. But from what I saw was that there were a couple of people that, in essence, served as my sponsors or my mentors that really pushed me and had the authority and had the capability to put me in positions where I was able to do a lot more. And I don't want to get ahead, but I think we're going to talk about this later on. Is just the fact that you end up finding yourself being the only one, unfortunately, when you get to a certain level, is that you're the only person.
That's very true
in the group. So
Definitely.
that's been my experience, especially in larger organizations, is that when you finally get there and you finally, break through all the hurdles and you get through all the challenges to get to that table, you look around and you're like, uh-oh, where did everybody go?
Yeah, you can't miss a meeting because they could just do roll call and they just no dark faces there,
Yeah.
and then, okay, they know you're not around. Yeah. We're definitely gonna
Yeah.
get to that. Yeah. Lau, how about you?
I can relate to that. Uh, I've been at 4 different firms now from inception from high school, and I really didn't know what was happening in the first place I was at. So right out of high school, I came in and it was a group of guys. We came in as a educational work study group. So we worked 1 week, we went to work 1 week, and it was a group of us. I'll say 10 to 12 guys, and we worked at one U.S. firm. So after graduation, the U.S. firm helped us all as though we were beneficial to them, that they liked us and we brought on. And as a group, we always stuck together, and it was multiracial. It wasn't just black and white. There were Hispanics. There was even Indian guy in the group, and we all became friends. We all got along. And as we started to progress work-wise, we began to notice that, it seemed like the Caucasians got the promotions, got the raises, got the glory,
Right.
and we were pretty much the resource, similar to Keena's answer to the question. I myself became the resource for my upper management guys. So it was the question would come to me, and the answer would come from me back up through management. So it was a little weird. But after I left that firm, I was there for 10 years after high school, and I
Okay.
joined a German firm. And the question was asked to me by pretty much a Caucasian guy who's German descent, and he posed the question to me directly: "Do you have a problem being the only black guy here?"
Oh
And,
man.
and I almost fell off my chair.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And the answer to the question was, I didn't come here to be a black person. I came here to do a job. I came here to perform a function, not to be the
Wow.
only black person at your firm. And he
Wow.
was taken aback at that, so I wasn't expecting that. So that's what I'm here for. I'm not
Right.
here to be the only black person. I don't see my color. I'm here to do a job.
Excellent.
And
I
I was
mean, when
hired.
I say excellent, I mean that is just taking the bulls by the horn right there and just telling it like it is. A lot of people don't have the guts. I know I wouldn't have had the guts because
Right.
I'm looking at my money, my paycheck, my family, my wife,
Mhm.
and kids and dog and mortgage and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just I couldn't do it. I'll be perfectly honest. I would have just said whatever, but to just
I,
hit him like that. Yeah,
well,
that's
to be
crazy.
honest with you, I would have if my prior experience had not been what it was. Like I said, I watched of the 12 group of guys I came with, I watched the Caucasians get promoted first, get the raises first, get paid, and then myself or the other minorities be the resource for the work, for the answers to these difficult questions. So I went back to my upbringing, and I remember a speech by Martin Luther King, or a saying he had, says, "If you're going to be a street sweeper, you be the best street sweeper you can be."
Right.
That's right. I was brought up that way.
Yep.
That's right. Absolutely.
And my upbringing was that you never take a back seat. You don't take a step back and watch. But unfortunately, you don't have control over those. And so my upbringing, even going to school, I was always going to predominantly white schools, and so my race was never a question. I always knew where I stood, and I always understood that you had to be just as good or twice as good in order to get the same entitlements that the Caucasians got. So as I watched my first job, I watched those promotions, those things happen, and it didn't really affect me at all because I saw, as I became more prominent in different departments I worked at. As I said, I went from purchase and sales to foreign exchange to buy-ins to settlements. It seems like as I rose in prominence in each one of those departments, I was transferred out to another one to start all over again. So it didn't dawn on me until 10 years later, and I'm going to be 28, 29, 30-year-old man with the wife and kids, and I'm not going anywhere. I've got to do something. Then it started to dawn on me what was happening to me and why it was happening. So at the German firm is where I actually got my start to be part of management. I was included in that my first job. So yeah, I've seen it, and I still feel it to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, that can stick with you.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm in a similar vein. I remember I was working for a firm in my 20s, a large banking firm. And I was similar to what you said. I used to go to the department, they send me in, clean it up, get it up and running, manage it, wherein, it would run almost by itself, you know. And then I would be moved to another department. They would send me to another department. I know a raise for a section head came up. I mean, a promotion rather came up. And it was between me and I guess he was an officer training candidate, some type of guy they recruited. But he was just passing through. But I couldn't understand it at the time. All right, but anyway, everybody was coming to me, man. You're gonna be interviewed, but you're gonna get it, man. You deserve it. Do this and that, patting on the back, blah blah blah. And mind you, I'm like 26, so they called me in. The EVP called me in the day before the announcement, and he said to me, "Well, we giving this position to the other guy." And I was shocked. I almost fell down. All right. And I said, why didn't I get the position? Did I
Right.
do anything wrong? Did I interview anything? My interview was inappropriate, or I didn't, you know.
Yeah.
And he said, it's just not you. It's not your time. And they gave it to the blonde guy, But looking
Right.
back at it, I can't attribute that so much to racism as I would to them having this guy be in transit. I mean, they were grooming this guy. Okay.
Mm.
So I could attribute it to grooming the guy, or I could, attribute it to, okay, I'm black and that's why they didn't give it to me. But, I know if I was white, I would have gotten it. They would have found another way, to groom this guy.
Right.
And that led me to spending almost 10 years in West Africa, looking for gold.
Wow.
So that's the story. I just want to throw that in there for y'all guys. But I understand the pain
Yeah.
of something like that occurring to you that we go through on a daily basis. All right. So I don't want to get off track so much, but I did want to share that with y'all guys. Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right. So anyway,
Thanks for sharing.
Okay. I want to go to the next question with Keena. All right. I know that a lot of senior spots came while the job market was stable and expanding. I know I became a product manager for an investment firm prior to the recession back in 2007, 8. All right. And, even with this, you usually came in after taking the position and not announced. In other words, I got the position. They sent a big email out and they said, okay, we have Walter Latham coming in and, he has various experience and we would like to see things from his viewpoint. We would, have him as part of the team because of his viewpoint. But I think what I'm really asking y'all guys is, do you see like you get more promotions when the company is expanding and the economy is booming, because it's a boom or bust type job that we hold, especially for the industry, the sector that we work in. Y'all guys find that to be the case?
I think I actually have two experiences, one in management and one when I was just a contributing individual, where I want to say when the market was expanding, there was an opportunity and I interviewed at a company, and then they really got the full understanding of my skill set and my experience. So they then went ahead and changed the title they increased the title for the position that I was going for. And then I said, "Oh, I found that out when I was going when I was going to sign off on the offer letter." So they never even officially mentioned, "Hey, we're going to expand your duties to be X, Y, Z." And it was a huge expansion. It was not anything that I have not it was not a function that I have not performed prior to. However, they did not, disclose that to me prior. And then when I looked at the number never changed, right? So the number still referenced the lower position that I had originally applied for.
Mm.
Wow.
And the change was the expansion of developing an entire building and growing and developing an entire department that would also support domestic and potential global opportunities as this expansion was happening. So I had to fight for the increase, and still the increase was peanuts in comparison to what it should have been. However, at that time, my oldest was finishing up high school, and I said to myself, well, you know what, it's a better opportunity for me to be here because I'm closer, to home, and I really need to be closer to home right now, rather than working far. So I took that opportunity. And then when a new manager came in, uh, who wanted to further expand my responsibilities, at that point I had to have a solid conversation. And, luckily he was able to take a look at the market and found out that I was grossly underpaid. And then we negotiated a different salary. But this was only after about a year and a half. And after that
Okay.
year and a half, I was also looking to leave. So part of that renegotiation was also to keep me.
Did
All
we?
Um,
right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Another situation that happened. Oh, wait, sorry. Part of that negotiation was also to keep me. And then I was told that he did not meet my number, but he would told me by the next year he would meet my number. Next year came, I asked for the number. There were organizational challenges that were in process, restructuring of finance. So, I needed to kind of hold off. The next year, there was another reason, um, until, I was no longer there. I never got the full amount that I was promised. So another experience that I'm going to kind of quickly go through is, when I worked at a company who was going through a merger and acquisition. I had a
Okay.
boss who had been with the company for about 26 years. They were looking to lay her off. And then about 3 months after they laid her off, they said, hey, Sakina, you're really technical. You have a lot of technical experience. You have the project management function and you have the accounting function. We are going to give you her position, but we cannot give you her position for another 3 months because we needed to make sure that position was closed for 6 months. So they told me the number that they were going to give me. They explained to me that it could not be similar to what she had because she was more tenured in the company. I then had to fight. So I was moved into that position, and then I had to literally fight, verbally, kind of consistently request for the increase. And at that same time, it was myself and another young African American who was about my age at the company. We were the only African Americans. And I did not know at that time he was going for a raise as well. One day, my boss asked me to go in his email and look for something, and then I saw my name on an email, so naturally I read it. And that email was an email from himself to his boss saying, hey, we need to hurry up and give Kina and the other gentleman a raise before they play the race card because we have not given it to them yet.
Wow.
Now, I was really
Wow.
taken aback because I didn't think that I was supposed to get a raise because of the race card. I thought that I was supposed to get a raise because I had taken on additional responsibility. You had given me my boss's position that I rightfully earned, and you told me that you were going to give it to me. So, that was a little crazy. But taking one step back in the conversation to the other position that I held, the position when I was asked to lead an organization, I was at that time the only female vice president. I was the only African American, and I was the youngest African American vice president. So while I will always be myself in an organization, I was always the only Black person sitting at the table. During certain conversations with leadership, and majority of the individuals were Caucasian males. And I'm not the type of individual to shrink, especially in that role. You had to be able to be assertive and get your point across and be able to
Yeah,
influence.
that's true. Very true.
Right.
However,
Right.
you do feel the temperature in the room
Mm-hmm.
in certain instances.
Very well described.
Right. 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 I was going to ask you that, Kina, being a female in corporate America, because that's why I left. It was a Caucasian dominated male environment in corporate America. I worked in back office FX, trading, and it was just very difficult working in that industry because it was male dominated. And financially, I never got, they gave me a small title only to give me a certain salary that didn't go anywhere. It was a flat salary where I didn't get paid overtime or work on the weekends or anything. That's why I left, because it was so competitive as far as, male, female, and race. So yeah,
Absolutely. Especially
definitely.
working in technology and having
Right.
worked in technology since the early 2000s when everything was booming, and it's
Right.
predominantly a male industry. So
Yes.
having the personality and being the type of person that I am, I'm not really going to allow anyone to steal my thunder.
Right.
I'm not going to be extra with it, but at the same time, you do get this just that someone's consistently trying to tell you that you need to stay in your place.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. I
Yeah.
wasn't the type to hold my mouth, so I had to leave corporate America. I don't regret it. I left when 9/11 happened, and I never looked back. Thank God. So it's definitely well, Walter, we worked together, so you know I didn't put up with too much stuff in corporate
Nah,
America.
yeah, you didn't. You
And I
didn't.
did get shifted on a promotion, and it was presented at a Christmas party. I was supposed to get an award and promoted, and they gave it to the white girl. So I was
Oh
kind
yeah,
of,
oh yeah. You
yeah.
were the best worker. You
Yeah,
were the best.
yeah, I had the credentials, I had the work experience. She was someone new, and and I left. I went to another company. I was like, I'm not going to sit here. I've been here XYZ, and this is what happens. Everywhere I went, every department, every company, it was the same thing. So I just had enough of it. So yeah,
Yeah, to that
it's
point.
we have a double. I have a double risk. I'm female and black. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. To
And
Michelle's
sometimes
point.
it's not necessary to fight the fight.
right,
Right. I mean,
definitely,
you have to just bite your lip, and I've
yeah,
done a lot of that over the years, over
right,
my 25 plus years, and I bit
right,
my lip a lot, you
right.
know. So, yeah, to your point, yes, Michelle, I do remember those days, and
Yes.
it was tough, and you know,
Mhm.
I even though this may be a little off track, but I think it's relevant to the conversation.
Mhm.
Michelle worked for me at the time, okay,
Right.
and we got a new department head. And the first thing the department head did was come to me because she was my direct, I reported to her directly and tell me, I want you to keep an eye on her. Talking
Right.
about Michelle, I want you to keep an eye. Well, why?
Right.
Well, I just got. I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
Mhm.
I am not going to do that.
Right.
Okay.
Censorship.
And and,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
thing, I'm telling her I'm not going to do it. In the
Right.
office, she's telling me to watch somebody. You know,
Yep.
and next thing I knew, they took my managerial. I was a general without an army.
Yeah.
I
So.
lost my. I lost my. Yes, they took it.
Yep.
She did,
Mhm.
but that was okay because all in a way when things bad happen, good things come. So
Right.
the only thing I can say, but that was a racist thing right there.
Yeah, she was racist,
That was
big
open.
time.
She was openly racist, and she was a
Very.
woman. You know,
Yep. Yep.
but the mere fact that the stars of the department were black, meaning Michelle
Right.
and myself,
Right.
and we were the ones that were saving $5 million,
Yep.
year over year, and we
Right.
put certain things in place. I know y'all guys heard of standard settlement instructions.
Mm.
We started it. We didn't name it,
Right.
but we started settling. We had 26 Italian lira accounts. This is pre-euro.
Yeah.
26 Italian lira accounts, and we said, "Oh, we overdrawn in one. A trader would settle in, let's say, Banco de Risparmio or something like that, and it should have settled at Banco de Roma. All right, so Banco de Roma would be short, overdrawn, and you'll be long in Casa de Risparmio.
Right.
Okay, so we put controls in place where we close all of those reciprocity accounts per se,
Right.
and so that we knew what our balances were in a particular currency. And
Right.
by doing that, we saved them millions of dollars a year. Now they call it standard settlement instructions. So if you're going to pay
Right.
me yen, I want my yen at Sumitomo Bank,
Mhm.
okay, or Mitsubishi,
Mhm. Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So we
We did
were
that.
contributors. We were value adds,
Yeah. I
okay.
was.
So I just wanted to share that because I felt that this was a good place to bring that up as to what we faced, because that was real, that was live.
It was real, and she was a female. I figured, working under another woman, but she was also white, so she gave me hell. But I didn't put up with a lot of her mouth. She was disrespectful a lot too, and I don't know. I wasn't the type to be dominated, especially by a woman at that time. And I had goals to, be more than what I was at that time, and she just kept holding me back. So off to the next.
Yeah, so yeah, I did want to put that in because that's a prime example of what we faced. That we just wanted to put that in and mention it. Because it's a good point, good place to put it in. Robel?
Yes.
Sorry to be talking too long, but I got carried away a little bit emotional.
No. It was interesting to hear everybody's experiences, and even when Kina was kind of talking, it's one of those things that I think men, we take it for granted, the challenges that women have to deal with, especially minority women.
Right.
And it's something that even as a manager, I would always try to keep the perspective of whatever decision I agreed to when I was the only person at that table or in those meetings that was of color. I'd always tell myself, I need to be able to walk out of this room with my head up high, because all of my teams, all of my groups have always been a very mixed, diverse group of people, because it's just the reality. I've worked in Texas for 20 years. We've got people of every shade, people from all over the place here. So it's definitely not as diverse as New York. But when you talk about operations roles, finance roles, there's a lot of diversity in those groups. So I always try to take the position that if I'm going to have to go in here and listen to some mess about we need to do this, we need to do that, I got to be able to go out and have that conversation with my team. And I had a lot of especially in customer service, tech, and underwriting, I had a lot of women. I had a lot of minority women, and that was something that always helped me kind of stay honest, and it kept me accountable. Was the fact that I need to always be able to walk out of that room and have these conversations and represent my team, represent the interests of my team. And it was something that I always preached during management training with my staff, was that you're responsible for all these people's families.
Right.
So I always took that approach. And if I ever had any suspicion that people on my management team were making decisions based off of something outside of merit, I'll sniff that out pretty quickly. And unfortunately, that is something that's never going to be erased. It doesn't matter how many of these podcasts we do, how many conversations we have. There will be people that are jaded. There will be people that are petty. There will be people that use those opportunities to wait until a holiday party to give an award to somebody else.
Yes.
Because they're petty, and because they're protecting something, and because they're threatened. And I always took it upon myself, and I said to myself, a long time ago, that I'm not going to participate in any experiments where it's going to make people feel the way I typically had to feel, being the only person at the table and being the only person to have a dissenting opinion and to have a different opinion. And I will say this, I think regional differences come into our experiences. I think our eras of being in management come into experience. And I will tell you this, my younger siblings, my older daughter's 22, her generation, they think completely different from the way that I used to think. They look at things completely different. I mean, they won't shop at businesses that they hear about some things going on, whereas in the past, we worked there, and we kind of like what Walt said earlier, we're trying to raise our kids and take care of our family, and we've got obligations, and we're just going to keep our head down and keep working. And I think, unfortunately, that was the mentality that's been around for a long time, is that, I need this job. But, But, and Walt, your initial question was really about what we saw happening with those positions when, downturns in the economy, situations where we take pay or take compensation, and then, things don't really go the way that they should. Kind of to Kina's point earlier about that one scenario where she was stepping up in responsibility, but they did everything possible not to compensate her properly. Unfortunately, and especially I think at larger companies more than smaller companies, this happens a lot.
Right.
I think larger
Yeah.
companies use their weight and they use the bureaucracy and they use the red tape to legitimize it and to protect themselves. But smaller companies, you see this happening too. And I've had, and I will say I have been fortunate to work at smaller companies because it's given me access to the ownership. It's given me access to the people to hold them accountable. And I've always been straight up and, I've told people, look, I'm not walking out of this room telling my team this. I'm not. This is not going to work. We've got to find a different solution, or we've got to find a different way around this. I can't do this. And I will tell you guys this. We were paying customer service people $11 an hour in 2006, 2005. And I would do everything possible to try to get it to 12. You know what I mean? And I would do everything possible to try to get it to 13 because I had to have those conversations, and not only with my hiring managers, because they'll look at me and say, they can go make $8 at McDonald's. Why are they going to come here for that? And I would have to, these are the conversations that I have to have with the executive team, the ownership group, and say, we can't do this. We can't bring people in like this and then play games with them. You got to treat people the right way. And it speaks a lot to the way that you treat your employees being the image of your company. So I would try to use that as leverage to kind of say, look, I'm the only person that's going to have this conversation with you. The other 6 members of the executive team don't understand this. I'm telling you this because this is the way the real world is. So I would try to use those moments. I'll try to use those moments to kind of paint the picture of, look, let's fix this, not just for our company and our employees, not just for our morale, but the image of our business, the image of our industry. And especially in merchant services, Walter, Sakina, you guys can attest to this, heavily male driven, number one, heavily skewed. Well, what I was going to say is the compensation and the responsibilities are heavily skewed towards, the founders and also towards male positions. Typically what you would see as male dominated positions, sales roles, things of that nature. Yeah. So you always had to fight for things, and you always had to go to bat for your team and try to do the right things. And you might have been labeled the noisy one if you did that. You might have been labeled the person that was making too much of a stink of everything, and you didn't get invited to some of the meetings, and you weren't asked your opinion because people already had a predisposition to say, "Oh Lord, it's going to be, he's going to say all this, and he's going to make it about this, and he's going to do this." And I think one of the best things that I always try to do was I always try to develop a really good relationship with HR. HR was always key for me. The HR team had to be my best friends, and I needed them to know my focus was always going to be my employees. That was it. My team is going to be the most important thing for me. I'll take complaints all day long. I'll take people complaining about my team, complaining about, customer complaints all day long. But my team needs to know that I've got their back, that I'll do everything possible to take care of them. And if I don't have that, I don't have anything. So as long as HR knew that, as long as legal knew that, I always felt great. And I felt that I'm safe because my conscience is clear. It didn't always work out. There were situations where you realize you're not in a meeting, and then you're like, "That's interesting. Why am I not in this meeting?" And then later on, you get told by your boss or somebody else, "This is the decision that was made." I'm like, "Okay, I know I wasn't in that meeting." And you start kind of positioning yourself and understanding whether this is not that environment. And the reality of it, the majority, and it's not just in the U.S. And I'll tell you this: I'm an immigrant. I came from another country. I've grown up here in the U.S. But I'll tell you that the majority of the world hires people that look like them. That's just it. It's just the way it goes. The majority of the world promotes people that look like them. The majority of the world promotes people that went to the same schools as them, same programs, all that. So if you're not like those people, a lot of times you're going to be more of the noisy one, the troublemaker, all this and all that. So, I think a lot of us in corporate America have to learn how to play the game. We have to learn how to navigate those waters. And it's frustrating. It's not fair. It's definitely not fair. It's not equitable. But the reality of it is that you have to do that, and you have to do it for the right reasons.
All right. Now, I still want to go to Lyle on this. All right. But, I was told that, if you didn't want to play the game, you get up from the table. And we have gotten up, and this is what I feel. We've gotten up from the table too many times, or we just sat at the table and played the game as is. All right. Your perspective is good, Robel. I understand it. But, from the way I perceive it is that, we are, everybody's an immigrant here. Okay. Sure. But we were forced into the U.S. Okay. And so our blood, sweat, tears, and everything is in the building of this country.
Sure.
Okay. So if they're going to see people like them, they've always seen people like them. We took care of their kids and all this kind of stuff. We built we built the country. So I don't,
The majority.
I don't accept that premise of, you don't look like me. So therefore, no, that has to change. That mindset has to change.
Completely agree.
Unacceptable.
And Walt, guess what? It's not. It's that's the biggest threat to the old school thinking in this country is that it's changed. It's already changed.
Right.
Look
They
around.
won't accept it.
Look around. Look at your neighborhood.
don't
Look
want
at
change.
your schools. Look at everything around you. And I'm telling you this from the South. It's changed. You can't go anywhere right now in this country without seeing second generation, people that are second generation of being different. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is forget immigrants, forget people that just got here in the last 10, 15 years from another place. I'm talking about mixed families, talking about cultures that have mixed and blended over the years.
Right.
And in the southern part of the U.S., you have a huge amount of Hispanic, really Mexican, especially where I'm at, in Central American folks that are here that have been here for 90 years, 100 years. And you talk about El Paso, you talk about even Houston and some of the border towns. You go up, New York. I mean, New York, more than anywhere else, you guys understand where I'm going with this, is that these boardrooms are not going to stay the same. They're not going to look like what they look like for the last two. And they stopped looking like that quite a bit ago. So now you start seeing the table having more people. There's more representation. It's not enough, and I think that, Walt, to your point, there have been, 500 years, 600 years of history of this country of other people's sweat, blood, and tears and pain that have built this economy, that have built this country, that have gone through building a lot of the things that we're benefiting from. There are actually great things in this. People are killing themselves to come here every day.
Right.
And unfortunately, the reality of it is that it's taken a lot of people suffering to get to the point that we can even have this conversation, have it published, and feel comfortable and not be afraid. And I think that's a very important part of this conversation, is that people can stop being afraid. People can speak openly and know that it's not going to be a reason why they can't get a job, and I think, the last 3 months, 6 months that a lot of us have had time to kind of be introspective, spend time with our families and think about the big picture and the sacrifices that we've made. It's opened up a lot of people's eyes and made people realize that these are things that, why did we say okay? Why did we say it was okay? And, Walt, earlier, the comment I made, unfortunately, one of the things I realized, and this is something that I learned a lot from my uncle, who struggled through a lot of problems, in the 70s. And in the 70s and the 80s, he I don't know if you guys remember Eckerd. Did y'all ever have Eckerd drugstores in the New York area?
Yeah, I heard Eckerd. Yes.
My uncle was the first non-white manager for Eckerd's in Florida in the 70s. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And he had just come to this country. He was just here. He just came here, finished college, and then that was the first professional job he had. And the stories he told me about what he went through,
Can imagine
and what he dealt with. And he always told me, he says, I had every day I didn't want to be there. And he says, I knew I didn't have a choice. He says, I just got here, finished college, and it was the first professional job I had. And I just wanted to send money back to my family. And I couldn't leave. And he told me, he says, you have to stay in the game, because that's the only way you can change the game. And he always put that in my head, was that you gotta push and just keep pushing, because it won't change if you don't keep pushing. And even if you can get one person to change their behavior, it'll affect 10, 20 families in the future, because now their mom or their dad that's at that company will be treated better, and they'll come home in a better mood. They'll come home with more money in their pocket. They'll be able to send their child to a better school, and it just has that trickle down effect. So that was something that he pounded into my head at an early age, was just that, look, people are going to treat you like crap. We're in Texas. People aren't going to care about your
and
education.
that's it.
They're not going to care about your education. They're not going to care about, how well spoken you are and all this other stuff. He said,
Mhm.
"This is it. The decision is already made when they saw you."
Robel, I don't mean to cut you off, but in the interest of time, I want to go to Robel, and I'm not Robel. I'm sorry, Lyle. Lyle.
Lyle, I apologize. I
Okay.
talked too much there. I'm going to go on mute. Okay.
No, no.
No,
That was good
no.
stuff. That was good
I
stuff.
got added responsibility. That was good stuff. I mean, hey, don't worry about it. Let's
Mhm.
just be open and honest, and
Mhm.
that's what we're looking for. All
Yeah,
right, Lyle.
yeah. It's pretty hard to to rebut that. It's he had a lot of good, powerful points there, and a lot of it, is some of my history there, and some of my family's history there, and what I've learned from them. So it's pretty much, we have the same story, we have the same background, and it's a little bit of a mind blowing thing to hear from somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I've been in those situations where you've got a different point of view than the rest of the table, and you have to get it out, and you've got to say it, and you can't be afraid to present your point. And similar to what Rebel said, you're sitting at the table, and you have a different point to view than the other people at that table, and you've got to be able to present your point in a way that it's viewed or accepted, right, and not viewed as you being the disgruntled, the angry, or the rebellious one at the table. And
Right.
in my management experience, I've had to deal with being in front of a group of managers or uppers, and then making decisions for people below, and not taking into account not only their gender but their race also. And you're supposed to go along with this, and you being the only one different,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
you have
It's
that
tough.
difficulty of standing out. How do you say something that's different? Everybody else is going, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're supposed to say yeah too. And I've had that experience at one place I was working for, and I had not only people of different races but different genders, and you've got women, you've got younger women, you've got older women, you've got men, younger men, older men, and you've got to speak for them, as Rebel said, and you've got to be able to come out of that meeting and be able to tell you people you work with, they're not for, they don't work for you, you work with them, and be able to tell them that you expressed your point, and that it's sort of the views are supposed to encompass uh, everybody's perspective.
Right.
And you being the manager, you have to take on the view of women, older men, older women, different races. You have to have all those views in your opinion and your what you think. So it's tough, and working with women is not easy. I'm going to tell you that.
Not at all.
Because not only are they stronger than men are, but their opinions are stronger than men's are, and
Yeah.
I found that working with them is great when things are going well. When things are going wrong, it can be really tough because they're very strong minded and strongly opinionated, but they're usually moving in the right direction. So you got to be able to grasp those, and I think Rebel probably has that experience of working with people like that. But management seems to overlook that aspect, that is something that is a great resource that can be harnessed from the other genders, other races, and they have a tendency to overlook those. Like you go into these corporate conference rooms, and everybody, like Rebel said, looks the same, talks the same, comes from the same background, except you.
Right.
Right.
Even though you've got the same education, but you come from a different background, and
Or you look different.
yeah, you look
Right.
different, you speak differently.
Right.
And to me, I find it hard not to bring my dialect into those atmospheres or those surroundings, because when you're brought up with dialect in your head, we all speak English, but we speak different Englishes. So in the corporate American world, they speak a different English than we do, out here on the streets. We speak a
Like
different English.
colloquial, I
Right,
think. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So I find it difficult to not to bring those in, especially when emotions are attached to it. But I've been in rooms where these rooms where we have. I'll go back to my old one firm where we had to And this is going back to your point about times when they get hard, the market restricts. And we had to sort of make a case for getting rid of people because we had too many as the market shrunk. And as I said, I was working with women of different colors, men of different colors and ages. And I walked into a management meeting, we were giving reviews, and I was told by my direct manager and his manager before him, we have to give somebody a failing grade. And I'm going to say my department was the most diverse. I had women of color, I had Caucasians, I had men, different colors, and I was told specifically which ones had to get the failing grades.
Wow.
And I swear to God, I almost cried.
Wow.
And
Yes.
I it was bad on my part. I'm going to say I'm not going to say I regret it, but it was something I shouldn't have done.
I mean, so
But
what you're saying, just for clarification purposes, Lau, are you
Yeah.
saying that they had minorities on the list? They were more prevalent in the reduction in force
Yeah.
than some of the whites. Some of the whites should have been on that list, but they put minorities up there instead of some of the whites. That's what you're saying, right?
Right. I'm saying they selected certain people they wanted to give these grades to, and the majority of them were minorities.
Wow.
And I was told specifically to give this person a failing grade. And I had done these reviews prior to that meeting. And I had some women who were working with me, working very hard. Some of them had come from different departments and had started to learn this process and put in a lot of effort to learn it. And after I'm giving them a review that is commiserate with their work experience, what's the word I'm looking for? Their work habits. I'm giving them decent reviews.
Right.
Because everybody I felt like needs a raise, needs to get a decent raise every year to support families. We've got people working for us, with us, who have families to support just like we do. So there's no way I want to give somebody a raise that says you shouldn't deserve. I mean, a review that says you shouldn't deserve a raise.
Right.
So while I may not give you the highest highest rating on a review, I'm not going to give you the lowest. So once I got into this meeting with my manager, he says you can't give this grade to this person because somebody has to get the failing grade so that we can use this. And I had to give this to 2 Black women, unfortunately. And these were 2 of the harder working people that I was working with. And I said I regretted it. And I don't actually regret it. I said, I'm thinking this from my professional assessment. I regret it.
Yeah.
But I don't regret what I did. And I told him there's no way I'm going to do that. And he looked at me like, "Are you're resisting?" And sorry, I said, "Yeah, I can't do that. I'm not going to do it. Not that I can't. I'm not going to do it because these people have worked their way up and worked their way across and come to work every day. They've been reliable. They have good work ethics. They have good work habits, and there's no way that they deserve a failing grade, which means that you're not performing your job up to snuff. That's definitely 100% not true." And I was given the old boy speech. Well, you're part of management now, and you have to sort of comply with us and work with us on what we're trying to do. I said, that to me is a blow to my integrity. And I can't go out there and explain to somebody that I think you're doing a great job, but I have to give you a failing grade.
Right.
And I felt like, it was done because they were minorities, not because, you needed to downsize, but there was dead wood everywhere.
Yeah. That's that. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's
you got dead wood everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't pick the people that are not dead wood. And me being a manager, I would be able to tell you, and I wouldn't be adverse to saying I think this person is dead wood. But when I see people who are working hard, coming to work every day, working a little overtime, putting in the effort to learn new functions, I'm thinking you're the kind of person I want. You're the one who's trying to advance themselves.
Right.
And you're forcing me to give them a grade, not asking me. You're forcing me. Mm-hmm. So I had to sit in the office with a senior vice president, a director, and they pretty much gave me the corporate spiel. This is what we have to do, why we have to do it. I said, I understand that, but these people don't deserve that, and I'm not going to do it. Right. And 6 months later, I was told, we're downsizing and we're moving our offices, and you're not on the list of people who are coming with us.
Well, yeah,
Payback, right?
that's a result. Yeah, I mean, they'll get you. They will get you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how
So-
they
I
do
don't.
that.
But you know what?
James,
He would
Yeah,
have
go
spent
ahead.
the rest of his life trying to make that up because it would
Right.
have been in the back of his head.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
would have been
It
trying to
killed
make
me.
it up to every person that he would have hired
Mm,
or
Right.
passed by in the street.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
guilt.
but
Yeah.
So you
That
spoke
burden.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. That
I
burden
couldn't live
would
with
have.
myself. Right.
Yeah. That burden would have been there for too long. And that was going to tell you that the day you spoke up, that management team looked at you as a liability. So
Yeah.
they started trying to figure out how do we move this, and unfortunately the reality of it is that legal, HR, and executive teams now have almost become experts at managing exposure and liability
Right.
when it comes to race,
Oh yeah.
sex,
Yeah.
Well,
gender. I
I
mean,
want
name
you
it.
to know something. I sued that firm after they did that.
That's right.
I went to the EEOC and I filed a complaint. And the EEOC went into HR at that firm, and I got hush money, so to speak.
Yeah.
I got a
Right.
severance package, not to say anything.
Yeah, because it's all about
Good
settling.
man.
It's all
Good
about
man.
settling at that point. It's all
Good
about
man.
Right.
minimizing the exposure. But I always try to keep a positive outlook, and I always try to tell myself these are the things that will, because it doesn't matter what your view is.
Mhm.
Everybody loves green. Everybody loves that color.
Definitely.
And eventually it gets to the point that shareholders, owners, whoever has that fiduciary benefit or the responsibility is going to say, why are we losing all this? Why are we spending all this money? So unfortunately,
Right.
that's sometimes the only way you can make change is people
Right.
is to get to keep taking money out of people's wallets. Sometimes that's the only thing that works.
Yeah.
And
Hit him in the
unfortunately,
pocket. Yes.
unfortunately, that's the system that seems to, work the most.
Right.
And it's not right, and especially when it comes to taking away people's opportunity to earn a living.
Yeah. I want to elaborate on that situation because, if you weren't the type of person you were and you did do those reviews, that would have harmed those women moving forward for promotions as well. It would have been on the records.
Yeah, you go back into your HR and you look at your profile, and hey, you've got a failing.
Right.
I couldn't do that to somebody.
Right.
Yeah, not when they didn't deserve it. And to me, integrity and and my
It's your
reputation
name. Yeah, it's your
is
name.
more
Right.
important than the dollar and the
Yeah.
dollar sign. I just couldn't do that.
And that's
I had-
corporate
I had
America
these options.
tactics. Yeah. That's their
Yeah.
tactics. That's just
But then
like,
again, then again, Michelle, when you go, I have an MBA, and which is no big deal, but
Mhm.
you got to have it because it does this, distinguish you from your in terms of competition, But there is a term called reduction in force,
Mhm.
all right, where you lay off people,
Right.
all right, for numerous reasons. Okay, I would think it would be better that as a manager, my boss would come to me from getting the word from high up. Okay, we need a 5% reduction in the budget over last year. You got to cut somewhere. We need 5%. Okay, because I had budget responsibilities.
Mhm.
So, and spend responsibilities. So whatever. But it's better to say I need 5%. You got to reduce your budget by 5% or 10%. All right, it's coming from head office,
Right.
and then allow you as a manager to make a determination or make recommendations on how you're going to do that. I want a reduction in manpower or head count.
Right.
I need it. All right. It's a mandate. Okay. So it's better to do it that way than to, as what happened to Lao, where they said, okay, this person.
Just picking.
Even it's better to just have. I'm gonna reduce my budget by 10%. Now let me go about my heavy count by 10%. And let me go about doing that. All right. Even though a person gets a 3, you call the person up and say, look, due to we're not doing that well, blah blah blah. That's legitimate.
Right.
All right, because they want to reduce their costs. One thing that I did find out, and I found this out in undergrad, and I was taking a finance class, And the guy was telling me, we were talking about, doing allocations and expenses and things of that nature. He said, don't you know that when a company hires you and they see you in the building, they don't see you for color or anything. They're looking at you as an expense. Every time they see you, they see a spend.
Wow.
And they want to get rid of that spend.
Mm-hmm.
Because they pay you and they want to get rid of that cost. All right. As Robert mentioned, for fiduciary responsibilities, for shareholder value, for the company's profit, reduction in operating costs. They see you as a spend. They don't see you as a person.
Right.
They want to make sure that that your productivity exceeds how much they're paying you.
Exactly.
That's business. Yeah, and that's just straight business. I mean, that's just the
That's just
reality.
straight
It's
business.
just straight business. And
Yeah.
the unfortunate part is that human beings make those decisions. And human beings all have their flaws, right?
Where's the algorithm for that, right?
Yeah,
They're going to have one, I'm quite sure.
And guess what, Walt? If you're not in sales, if you're not generating revenue, if you're on the non-sales side, you're an expense. It's just the brutal reality.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how hard you work, how much
Yeah.
money you save for the company, you're not generating revenue. So that's the reality of it.
Yeah, I'm a prime
Especially
candidate.
when you're in
I'm
like a
prime victim
project
of that.
management function.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what do you say, Lau?
Yeah, I'm a prime victim of that myself because I'm in operations and we do not generate income. We're
That's
the other
right.
side
That's
of
right.
it.
That's
We're
right.
the preservation of income.
That's right.
So they're looking at me as a dollar sign, as are you worth the money we're paying you, or does your value exceed what we're paying you? And
And that's the same in project management as well, because you drive the implementation and the delivery of key projects that either drive revenue, reduce expenses, or enable you to compete better in the market. However, you're still looked at it as an expense. They're going, we pay you what to do what? Can't we just we can reduce the project management department at times as needed, and they find out that doesn't generally work out. But generally, you're looked at like, well, are we really actually gaining something from having this many project managers, based on what the expenses?
And Sakina, I think one of the challenges also is that project management, especially in the last 15, 20 years, has been about product deployment, right? About getting product out.
Getting products to market.
Exactly. So it's like, unfortunately, departments like those, groups like those, tend to be looked at as the groups that are slowing things down. They're not, and everybody wants to blame somebody else. So even though the software departments or the development groups might have the issues, that there's still somebody else that's going to get the blame, and it trickles down. And Lyle, to your point, I had a mentor, and I call him a mentor, but he was really an owner at one of the companies that I worked at years ago. He was the CFO. He was responsible for finance at this small company, and I was in operations. I was SVP of operations at that company, and he always told me, he said, because we had to do RIFs, we had to go through it multiple times, and he told me the best thing you can always do in non-sales groups is create value by generating revenue. And he gave me so many good ideas, and he was the one that had me teaching my customer service team to upsell our clients. They were merchants. Merchants would call in with a question about their statement or fees or this or that. And he told me, he says, why don't you try to do upsells? And he told me about something that they did at a prior company that he was at, not in payments. It was like a household goods company. And these are things that you would never think of unless somebody kind of coaches you or guides you and tells you to come up with these type of incentives or programs. And I thank him all the time when I see him. I'm like, man, you saved me so many times, and you kept me at a point where my departments felt like we were doing something that was going to help us stick around longer if sales wasn't doing what they were supposed to do to generate income. But it's always tough. It's always tough to be in non-sales groups.
All right. Now, I mean, we covered a lot of ground. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip some of the questions that we had laid out for you guys. All right. And I know that y'all guys had budget responsibilities. So some of these questions are just irrelevant at this time because we covered them in the conversations up to now. Right. All right. But I do want to ask y'all guys, when you attend meetings, and I'm circling back to what was mentioned earlier. I think either Keena mentioned it, or Rubel. When you attend meetings, all right, the higher you go, and Rubel, I remember you mentioning that, the higher you go, the less color you see. I know that happened to me. All right. I chaired meetings as a project manager, portfolio manager, program manager, and we're doing a global rollout. And you have like 200 people on the line. Actually, you had to do roll call by email. All right. And there's always somebody just replied and then just, so it went to all these 200 people. Yes, I'm here. But I mean, when you have that and you're the only black, I was the only black out of 200 people. I mean, you're talking Latam. I don't know any black people in Asia, APAC, EMEA, and these places. And these are geographical locations that are just grouped, in those terms. Asia, APAC is Asia Pacific and Atlantic or whatever. All right. That you were the only black and you wondered, you're working for a large financial institution and you wonder why am I the only black? We in America. Why am I the only black in the room?
Right.
Because, you're cheering, you got people on site. You may have 30 people in the conference room, and then you got another 150 or 200 people that have dialed in. And so I could never, that's something that used to startle me. All right. That I was chairing a meeting with all these people, all these resources. All right. And end users. And I'm the only black because, as Robel indicated, is that the higher you go, the less color you see.
Right.
Now that's a prime example. Now, how have y'all guys found it to being the only one in the room? I'm gonna start with
I want to say I'm actually accustomed to that because I find that even before I moved back to New York, I lived in Georgia.
Right.
I used to wonder the same thing. Where were all the other African Americans working? Because they certainly were not working at the same jobs that I was working at. So, there was a company that I worked directly for the CIO with a dotted line to the CO and compliance officer. So I was literally the only, and this is in my earlier years, I was the only African American person in the executive headquarters wing. And, I had the opportunity to learn a lot, but at the same time, it's where you also have people saying to you, well, you know what? You're different. You're not like some of the others.
I've heard that.
Wow.
I've heard that. I heard that a few times. You're not like what I expected.
You're not like the others.
Right.
You articulate well. You can speak.
Oh,
where are you from? So that was very insulting. But at that time in my life, and in my early 20s, you're just kind of, you have children, you're trying to put food on the table, and then you're trying to figure out how can I respond to that and still keep my job.
Now that's what I'm talking about. That's I had the same. That's what I'm talking about. You got responsibilities. All right.
Yeah. So I want to say, and even in the same vein, I want to say, in other companies where, like I mentioned before, you have a seat. Like I've had a seat at the table, on a number of different occasions, as well as when I was in non-management positions. I've always been brought into meetings that required like someone being pulled off of the project management team to work on a special project. So that's kind of also how I got into process reengineering as well, being just pulled into things. So I've kind of always had a seat at a table, but I have had a seat at the table as this resource who will do what it takes to get the job done. Right. So there's an element of, yes, we can rely on Keena to figure out how to get it done, even when the entire puzzle has been spread all across the floor and it's completely dark. We know that she's going to figure out how to put each piece together. But at the same time, we're not necessarily going to give her all the resources to do so, but we expect her to make it happen. But what tends to happen is as you grow in your skill set and you grow in your experience and you start to, be able to have a deeper reservoir of experiences and knowledge to pull from, and you're talking to other leaders that don't look like you and you're the only African American in the room, I found that there's an element of profound respect coupled with, yes, we respect you, but we're not going to listen to you because almost I think was it Robel who mentioned it? you don't have the same background as us, so you really don't
Right.
understand.
Right.
And you're coming across a little bit too strong. However, if we say the same exact thing that you said, we are passionate about our job and we are driven to get it done. If you say it, you may be a little bit disgruntled, or maybe you are mad at something else, or you just don't understand what the true climate is right now. So there's always a different flip side to being the only African American female in a room. There's,
Right.
I want to say, that level of respect that you know they respect you, but they're not giving you your full due respect.
Right.
But don't you think?
know,
Don't you think that you have to earn that respect when you come in? When they first see you, they see an African American female, and right
Yes.
there, they got preconceptions. So first,
Yeah.
you got to overcome that obstacle of letting them know that you know what you know your job and you're good at what you
And
do.
I think one of the challenges at one of the organizations that I worked in, I worked at one company that was extremely diversified, which I appreciated. But then I realized I was talking to someone. I literally said, I have never worked in my life with so many Black people. And then I was talking to another
Yeah.
person who said, yeah, but all of the Black people work in customer service. Now, I had
Right.
also never worked anywhere where the customer service department was so close. The customer service department was always somewhere in Florida.
Right,
It wasn't in New York.
right. A
So
different floor.
it was
Yeah,
somewhere where it was
yeah.
more cost effective to the budget. So,
Right.
and then when I looked at all of the African Americans, yes, they were in the customer service
Right.
divisions. So that company was accustomed to a certain mentality, I'll just say.
Yeah.
So while I will always remain myself no matter where I am, I knew that I had to carry the image of young African American female leadership in the organization. And then there was an opportunity that I had to pull someone into a role from inside the company. And she happened to be a young African American woman who was a manager. However, they would not allow her to leave her position and go into my position at the market rate of someone who I bought out from, I would have brought from the street.
Right.
And no matter
Right.
how good she was in her role, they would only give her a certain amount of money. When if I had brought someone from the street, that person would have gotten a $30,000 more.
Wow.
Okay.
I almost encouraged her, hey, why don't you leave and just apply from
Right.
and then
Yeah, if you
apply.
could guarantee it, if you can guarantee it.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I
So-
want to say something there, like in reference to dealing with racism on the job. They already have a certain way of thinking about us, like we were talking about it earlier, Walter, with you saying that we were their maids, we took care of their kids. That's the
exactly what it is.
mentality that they have of us. So they think of us as, okay, they're good in customer service, they're good in working at restaurants, they're good at this, they're good at that, but they're not good at running a company, working in corporate America side by side with us and getting paid the same money.
Right.
Some of it has to do with challenging the status quo, because you can work
Right.
in an organization where they encourage challenging the status quo, but not you. Because when
Right.
you challenge the status quo, you bring a different view. There's a
Yes.
different view, not to take it totally off topic, but there's a different view that's
Mhm.
not being accepted widely in America today. The view for however many decades has been there's 2.5 kids, a dog, a white picket fence, and a
Right.
family, right? Now the view with the extreme diversity, and it's not in a bad way, but the extreme amount of diversity and immigrants moving into the country with experience, with college degrees that have multi-generational households, right? It is
Right.
the concept of the 2.5 people in the household is challenged. So you now
Yeah.
have families with 8, 9, 10 people in the household, right? Those families also do not necessarily need, the adults in those households do not necessarily need to make the same amount of money as the 2.5 people in a house, right? So let's
Right.
just say if you have a husband and a wife and 2 kids, you may need to pull $150,000 minimally living in New York, right?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
if you have 5 adults living in a house, right? And they may be able to swing it with $60,000-$70,000 each, right? And then
That's
you have
extreme
this,
prejudice.
It is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
it is. And then, but that's what happens also in corporate America, where they say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take someone of a different race, allow them to come into the States, sponsor them, and then pay them peanuts on the dollar. So
Right.
this is disrupting the whole flow of compensation.
Mhm.
It's disrupting the flow of compensation, economy. How much does it cost to actually live in any regional area? Because you have a lot of different cultures. Where,
Right.
let's just say, on my street alone, there are a number of different cultures where my household, I can't afford to, I don't have 6 people in my house, so I need top dollar, right? My
Right.
next door neighbors, being in the same region and let's just say possibly working at the same jobs, can afford to take a lower cut. So
Right.
there's a shift that's happening. Now,
Yeah.
they're not wrong, right? They're not wrong, but there's a war that's happening between people who need to make, let's just say, 6 figures, and families who
Right.
are able to still survive successfully without the 6 figures,
Without the
because we
6
all live in the
figures.
same neighborhoods.
Yeah,
Right.
but
But
you look at my
America's
skin
not
color.
addressing that change.
Right. I was going to say that, Lyle. They're categorizing you because of your color. It's not like, I think they use your family status against you as well, your race as well, and your family. They know, okay, I have 6 kids. I need this job. She's going to take whatever I give her and no raise, because I know she's not going to leave. She needs this job to take care
Yeah.
of her family. So they use that against you as well.
There's one more thing I'd like to add as well, is that people of color do not necessarily understand their value, right? Like, let's just say in the
Yes.
project management function, depending on the value of project management across various industries, you can make there's a very wide difference in a salary gap or a contract rate gap, right? Significantly,
Right.
depending
True.
on.
True.
So what I'm about to say is that I remember having hiring responsibilities. There was an opportunity to do a contract to hire. So there was another
Still
experience that I've
interference.
realized, that African Americans tend not to thoroughly understand the value that they
Right.
bring to the table.
Right.
Like, let's just say in project
Right. You gotta know
management,
your
in the
worth.
function,
Mhm.
there is a very wide disparity in how, let's just say, a company in financial services may see the value of a project management versus, let's just say, a company in maybe consumer goods or something else see the value of a project management is more of that of an implementation manager, right? So I've had an experience where I had the opportunity to hire 3 contractors. There was a budget. I had to fight to increase that budget, but I knew what that dollar rate was. Not to sound like it's in the vein of a joke, but there was a Caucasian, an Asian, and an African American
Oh wow.
that were being hired, right?
Oh wow.
3 people being hired for the same role. I had 3 positions. And so when I explained what the rate was, the Caucasian literally challenged me for significantly more,
Of course.
which was still in budget.
Mhm.
The Asian woman challenged me just for a little bit more.
Right.
The African American male took the rate
Took it. Mm-hmm.
that I gave. And I was actually upset, but I could not do anything about it.
Wow.
I was extremely
Oh, my
upset
goodness.
because I said to myself, why do we do this to ourselves?
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
It would not have been within my position to say, hey, you know what, we can go up to.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because the first rate is always the lowest. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
That's just because
Absolutely.
he probably needed the work. He needed the job.
He needed a job. I
Right.
bet
And that's
everything.
that,
He needed it bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I just had that recent experience where I had to hire someone, and unfortunately, the joke is real because we had an Asian, we had an Indian, we had African American, we had Caucasian for the same job, and after interviewing 12 people, we came down to 2 African Americans,
Right.
and one of the guys had been out of work for a couple of years, maybe 2 years, but he held a higher position in his previous job, and we came down to the 2 people that we were going to hire, both being African American. Right away, the question went to compensation, and all of a sudden, the numbers went out of whack. I'm going, this job pays $100,000 easy, and I saw these guys tried to bargain guys down. So I like Sakina who said, well, how can I change this narrative? And you know what? I went the back door. I went to the guy. I said, look, I know you've been out of work for a little while. And he unfortunately gave us his family situation, that his mom was sick, so he left work, had to take care of her, and blah blah blah. I don't like to do that. I don't like for people to tell me their family situation in interview, but he did it, and they used that against him. Them being my bosses used that against him. So when I saw what they were trying to pay him, and I knew what his experience was worth, I went the back door and I said to him, I said, whatever you ask for, make sure it's a good number. I tried not to direct them,
Right.
but I told them do not take the low ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny
Because
because I remember because those positions were 1099 positions, and I remember asking the individual, I wanted to make sure that they understood that they were responsible for paying their own taxes.
Mhm.
You know, like you're responsible for your
Yeah.
own self-employment. You're like, it's like, did you realize? Okay, just wanted to make sure you understood because it's kind of like I wanted to say something, but I couldn't say something, so I just wanted to make sure that they were calculating their numbers right.
Right.
Well,
You know?
maybe the number, maybe the original number that you gave to them was well above
Yeah,
what they expected.
Mhm.
that could
So
be it as well.
say, let's not jeopardize this.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I've
Yeah.
been in similar situations.
Mhm.
But I have learned from being a manager that I got a range. I always have a range.
Yep.
And the first number I'm going to throw out to you is that low range. I'm a low ball you.
Mhm.
All right. And so when it comes to compensation, you may come back to me and say, which I expect, okay, well, 100,000, could you make it 120?
Mhm.
All right. And I'm gonna say, okay, let me get back to you. And
Mm-hmm.
we can finalize. Or I come to a point where I have, as part of my performance as a manager, is getting someone in on the number. All right, not over the number. All right, I got a
Right.
top and a low. So if I go over the number, then I didn't do my job. I need to look for
Right.
somebody else.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm.
Well,
So
my view is a little prejudiced because I felt I was lowballed in my compensation, and so I was determined that this wasn't going to happen to another African American person.
Right.
there you
So
go.
as I saw this coming in, and I've been lowballed, and just to give you a little more background to that, my current status is vice president in amongst the employees, amongst my boss. But if you go to HR, my status is assistant vice president. I was given a raise without actually getting a raise, getting a promotion without actually getting a promotion. So,
Financials. Mm-hmm.
That's
and
unusual.
I didn't
Yeah.
notice. I didn't notice it came out in the review. And then most recently, I've been uh, asked if I wanted to be promoted to associate director, given responsibility of 12 different people, and I politely declined. And
Yeah, I don't blame you.
when I was asked why, he says because I'm not getting compensated for my current position, and I want to know what the compensation is for that position.
Right.
And the conversation took a sideways direction. It was, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, we can't do only certain things. We'll have up, and I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
understand.
I can't
But
do it.
Bell, I'm sorry. We are really pushing on time, folks.
Mhm.
And so I'm gonna skip a lot. I'm gonna just ask a final question. All right, we may need to do a two, round two on this because we got some significant things that we didn't discuss. All right,
Mhm.
but okay, here we go. All right, now, what do you guys recommend the younger generation, the people that are just entering corporate America? What do you recommend? What advice could you give to those people, especially going into financial services
Mm-hmm.
and their minorities? What do they face? What recommendation based on what you've experienced, what you've learned, your lessons learned?
Mhm.
If you could give it to them in just one big sentence or a couple of words, whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah. What's your day? What advice would you give them?
Walt, did you want Keno to start?
No, I'm gonna start with you, Robel. Kena, I'm gonna start with Robel because he's been silent for a while.
No problem.
I would stick to a lot of the same things that I was taught, which is learn everything, do everything, and be outspoken about taking on the work. Raise your hand. Uh, question everything.
And you can do. You mean can do person.
Yeah.
There you go. I agree with that. I mean, 100%. I mean, that should be in the toolkit. That should be that should be your toolkit, brand new. That's the first thing you drop in there. I agree wholeheartedly. Lyle.
The advice I would give someone would be the first thing would be not to go in with blinders on, looking at the race or looking to play the race card. because I don't believe in using that card. I don't see
Oh
color
no, no, I
when I
agree.
see people. So that shouldn't be any in your focus once you go in. You know that the board is going to be white. You're not looking at the colors. So and expect someone to see yours. So you're gonna get some kickback, and you can't use it as a negative point to become angry, to become disgruntled, to become uncomfortable. So you're gonna get it. And the third thing is that you're gonna have to be twice as smart as your competition. I don't care what color or race he is or gender. You're gonna have to be twice as smart in order for you to be in the position you feel like you belong into. So as Rebel said, you have to learn everything. You have to be that person who looks to advance, looks to learn, is ready to raise their hand and say, "Yeah, I'll take on that responsibility."
Okay.
Just
Right.
Yeah,
Come an
you can
asset.
add that to the toolkit, folks.
right.
All right, for the younger generation, Gen X, Gen Z.
Mhm.
Yeah, y'all
Yeah.
guys need to add that. I mean, these guys have been out there. Now I'm gonna go to Sakina, and what would you advise?
I want to say I echo what the other two gentlemen said. I also echo the concept to not stay in one function. I think my generation and the generations prior to that, it was, you learn one thing and you learn everything that there is to know about that one thing. But I think, and then it was looked at negatively if you were a jack of all trades. But I think in this
Right.
day and time, there's a lot of benefit. And I've seen people who have resumes that every 2 years, it seems like they're in another function until they make it to very quickly to a leadership role. So at this point, where there's so many changes and competitive opportunities that it's best that you learn and you become very good at one thing and then you move on and
Right.
expand your horizon and learn and become very good at something else because that enables you to be more diverse. Also,
Excellent.
I would definitely suggest that you build a network. Consistently build your network because even though you may become the best in your team, there's always a potential for you to be looked over. So build your network within an organization and outside of an organization, because at the end of the day, the statement is it's business, it's never personal, but it's always personal because when you're looked over, it's personal. When someone messes with your check, it's personal. So
Definitely.
always leave an opportunity for yourself to be able to move on somewhere else and be equally successful, or keep that network of people where you really learn the ins and out of the business so that you can go ahead and start your own company. Never allow someone to steal your thunder. Never allow someone to hold you down. Consistently continue to reach for the stars. And continuous learning is one of the most important things that you can ever have. Just
You took the
because you
words
have
out
your
of my mouth.
degree,
Yeah.
just because you have your degree, it means nothing beyond once you close that door, once you walk off that stage, because things are forever changing. So you
Right.
must stay abreast of current times, not just in your industry, but in industries that are relying upon it.
Definitely.
All right. Yeah, I mean
That's so true.
that toolkit is ready. Almost. It's
One
almost
thing though
ready.
is never be afraid to walk away.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
know that may go against the grain of certain things, but never be afraid to walk away.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, it does go against the grain a little bit
Young,
because
young, young kids, no family, young people, no family, no kids. There's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
there
That's right.
there's a lot of opportunity. But I do want to end with and thanks, guys. I mean, that advice is precious. Uh, but one thing towards the end, I'd say from like 1998, when I went to my office or any job, I didn't put pictures up. I didn't do anything with my desk. Only thing I had was my knapsack, my laptop. That's it. And be prepared, you know, and to that end, and which makes it that much more important. It's always be learning. You can have a job that pays you X amount and you're not satisfied, but the potential to gain and add to your toolkit by learning that function and learning that business, you grow. They may not have the money, but they may have something else in terms of what you can learn and what you can take from it. So I made it a policy, my own policy, to look at a job and say, okay, what can I gain from this job? Not necessarily in dollars,
Right.
But what can I learn
Knowledge.
that I don't know? What can they give me? What can they train me on? What can I access? That is important. Always be learning, like Sakina says. Always be adding to your toolkit. It never stops. When I got my MBA, I said, I'm never going to school. I did my BS and MBA at nights after work. Okay, and weekends. I said, I'm never going to school. Nope. Next thing you know, I'm doing 6 weeks for project management to be a PMP, a project management professional. The next thing you know, I'm doing SWIFT, money movement. You always have to learn. So if a job pays you on the low end a little bit, you look at it you look at it the overarching view, or holistically what you're going to be able to take away from that job other than money.
Right.
Because you can get it in the end, because you're going to have that experience.
Definitely.
And that
Knowledge is power. Yeah.
Absolutely. So with that said, folks, I'd like to thank my guests, Kina, Robel, and Lyle. Y'all guys were fantastic. And really, thank you very much. And we may have to do a part 2. It sounds like it, guys. And I hope that y'all guys will be up to it if I reach out to you. Okay?
Yes.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the
Absolutely.
invite.
Your time.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Everybody take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Stay safe,
Now.
everyone.
Great talking with you all. Great talking
Y'all,
with you.
good,
All right.
good
Thanks,
job.
Lyle. All right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a good one,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you for joining the Walt Weekly. We can be found at Facebook, The Walt Weekly Podcast, Twitter, @Walt Weekly, Instagram, The Walt Weekly, and www.thewaltweekly.podbean.com. Please like, follow, and share.